What book made you fall in love with reading? Harry Potter series. These books are amazing. I'll never forget when it reached the last 4 to 5 chapters and everything heated up. There was no way you go to sleep without finishing the book. I would show up to school exhausted from staying up till 3 AM reading. Good memories. Yes, this exactly. Reading under my covers with a flashlight. Scared that my parents would find out I was still up. Could not put them down. Sleep is for muggles. In my case it wasn't a single book, but the fact my parents taught me to appreciate books and spent a lot of time reading to me when I was little and encouraged me to read as I grew up. I also remember we always had a lot of books in our home and they looked very appealing to me. Now, when I'm a parent myself, I do pretty much the same. I read to me baby every day for at least 40 minutes. And we have a shitload of books at home. I'm exactly the same. My parents wouldn't always be able to afford the latest toys and gadgets, but they'd never spare any expense with books I wanted. Although my son sadly isn't with us, I used to read to him in utero and loved feeling him kick as he reacted to my voice. We haven't touched his nursery since we lost him, but he already had a pretty good book collection before he was born. Sorry to hear about your loss. I'm afraid to even imagine what you must have gone through. Famous 5 by Enid Blyton. 1984. It's an absolute masterpiece in my opinion. At this point I can't tell whether this comment is a 1984 is the only book Reddit has ever read joke or you are serious. I actually like 1984 and it's a great book. So I agree with you completely. Not because of the language, but the plot is seriously disturbing and keeps you in tension and truly worried about the people in it. I've read quite a few books, but 1984 is actually my favorite, believe it or not. It was one of the only books that truly captured me, and it was really refreshing to not have everything go exactly as I expected. The plot is incredibly written out, and yes, I'm serious about liking this book. The Hobbit. My teacher had the class read it in middle school circa 1981. Still reread Tolkien all these years later. Same. Maybe 2 or 3 years earlier. To Kill a Mockingbird, it's still one of my favorites. I had to read it while I was in all-day detention. I read most of the book that day. This is mine too. Read it in 8th grade and I still enjoy it. Terry Pratchett's Discworld, particularly the City Watch series. Definitely the Harry Potter series. White Fang or Something by Jack London. The Call of the Wild is awesome. Hunger Games trilogy, read it when I was 12 and I've loved reading ever since then. Narnia as a kid. Me too. My friend and I were like 8 and we decided we wanted to read something and went to school library and asked for recommendation. She gave us that. I still remember how much I loved it. I still love those books. Then later Harry Potter deepened the love for books. Eragon. The movie was such a letdown. Hyperbole and a half. 100 Years of Solitude. My dad bought it for my 18th birthday. It made me see that some things are only possible through the medium of text. The Boxcar Children. Me too. I still have all my Boxcar Children books. Link imga.com/z6gijz jpg, and I plan on sharing them with my kids when I have them. The Magic Faraway Tree by Enid Blyton. I came here to say this. Close bracket. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo got me hooked on crime novels and Swedish literature in general. Hatchet. Gary Paulson. Was in grade 5 or 6. I had always read books, but this was my first grown-up-ish book that I loved. The Great Brain series. I couldn't get enough of those when I was a kid. I can't believe someone else remembers those books. My brothers and I had all of the books and loved them. We also loved Encyclopedia Brown. We would read them to each other to see who could solve the case first. We are all in our 40s now, but we just had a text exchange before Christmas referencing one of the cases and my oldest brother immediately remembered everything about it. We had a good laugh about that. It's amazing how books can impact you, and even your relationships when you're growing up. My son loves Ebb now, and I hope to get him hooked on the GB as well. The Vampire Lestat by Anne Rice. Divergent. The never-ending story. This is gold. Yes, this story is so good and pure. Yes. 3. The Name of the Wind or The Man in High Castle. I recommend both. 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami. Percy Jackson. It was really interesting, and the twist really got me. Haven't found one yet. The Narnia series, when I was a kid. Lord of the Rings. I was in 3rd or 4th grade I think, and I learned that my sister had read it around that age. So therefore I wanted to. Up until that point I'd been behind in reading, because I just wasn't interested in the little kid stuff, but this hooked me. I probably didn't understand a lot of the words, but I still got through it and have reread it many times since. The Artemis Fowl books. Pride and Prejudice. Besides being better, how does it compare to the movie? Is there a way to describe the differences without spoilers? I loved the Knightley version for the record. Sorry, I haven't seen the movie. The Time Machine by H.G. Wells. Les Miserables. When I was a small child, it was the Time Warp Trio books. Yukikase by Chohei Kambayashi. I read it when I was 15. Until then, I didn't read very often and usually only non-fiction. It was the first book I read that couldn't be found in my school library, and made me realize how awesome some fiction can be. Since then, I've always had a book on the go. Where the Red Fern Grows. Speaker for the Dead. I didn't get into reading until I was an adult, and then all these books I was being recommended were filled with kids and teens, or for kids and teens. I was heavily recommended Ender's Game, so I tried it out. It was enjoyable, but I couldn't insert myself into the role because I was in my 20s. I was told that the next in the series would be more my taste most likely, and they didn't lie. I fell in love with that book, and ever since I've been reading just in hopes I can find something that enjoyable again, which I haven't. Entire series is great, but I think that Speaker of the Dead is my favorite. My War by Andy Rooney. Preteen me was blown away and could not put it down. Never having heard of Rooney before, and knowing very little about WW2, it was an insane amount of insight and information. When I finished I was despondent about not having more to read. Luckily right around then my grandparents got me this new funny looking book called Harry Potter, which they had heard was sort of popular. Please read Reverend Insanity. It will be the best Chinese light novel you will ever read. I swear to God. The Long Walk. Charlotte's Web. The book that sparked my interest in reading was The Secret Garden. Frances Hodgson Burnett. As a young reader, I was fascinated by this story with its adventure, mystery, and valuable life lessons. That was one of my favorites too. I loved A Little Princess as well. The Enchanted Wood by Enid Blyton. Got it for my birthday when I was 6. Chronicles of Prydain and Chronicles of Narnia when I was a kid. Jaws, Peter Benkley. The Hunger Games. I've always liked reading, thanks Mom, but Great Expectations made me love/appreciate it. I didn't really love it. In fact, I was a freshman in high school, and the teacher was terrible. But it was one of the first pre-20th century novels I ever read, and I found that I actually understood it, and B, despite obviously not being contemporary, there were a lot of themes that were applicable in 2003 as a 15-year-old. I've read a lot of books I enjoyed more since, but it opened the floodgates. The classics by Dickens opened me up too. I read the unabridged versions while in middle school, English as a second language, and while it was hard to keep up sometimes, the sheer beauty of the scene setting and the gloom of Victorian England kept me engrossed. I don't read as much as I want to now, but reading has shaped me, and I shall eternally remain grateful to the savants who left these treasures for us to enrich ourselves. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.